What is everyone? Welcome back to the Soul Hoops channel. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm joined as always with Ryan and Matthias. Today, we're just going to be going through some different, league stuff. We're going to be doing an NBA buy or sell. We both have all of us have a little bit, a couple of players, couple of teams that we're kind of buying and selling, and we'll see where the conversation goes from there on those teams. Before we get into that, Ryan, Matthias, how are we doing today on this beautiful Saturday evening?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I moved a couple days ago, moved into a new place. I didn't move very far as where in the cities I was moving. I moved like a 4-minute drive away, but moved in with some of my friends. We got like a house kind of going here, and things aren't really set up yet all the way. Like I don't think we have Wi-Fi yet, for example, but we're making it work. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. I'm doing well. School started. I'm pretty busy. I've got some internships working with the women's team, so I'm pretty tired too.
Started.
Yeah, camp started. It's like it's not really camp. It's like 3 hours max. So like a week. So it's nothing at all. But just tired. A lot of early mornings, but still fun. Yeah. So it's fun to do stuff because this summer I don't know. I wasn't as active.
Yeah.
I feel like this was a very slow summer from everyone. I don't know why. I just felt that way. It's made me a little bit sad seeing a lot of people go back to college, knowing I'm not going back this year. But I still got a lot of friends who are still at school. So still looking for my post-grad job. Job market is obviously always thriving, as it always is for new graduates. So have a lot of free time on my hands.
Bro, if you move to Minneapolis, you will find a job, bro.
Dude, I apply for a lot of jobs in a lot of different places. I get nothing, but that's just how it goes. Because like there's people with like 3 to 5 years of experience applying for jobs that are like 0 to 2 years of experience, and then like they're just gonna hire those experienced candidates so they don't have to like train them again.
Yeah.
Which sucks because like it's like, okay, well that just defeats the fucking purpose of like an entry level job. But we'll grind it through. At least I still have a job, place to live. Can't say that for everyone. So, you gotta take it as it goes. But with that being said, let's get into some buy or sells. Do you guys want to start with a team or a player?
I think we go teams first.
Okay.
Teams first. So as far as buying teams, I know one right off the bat is the Memphis Grizzlies for me. I feel like this is an easy one, right?
Yeah.
They kind of had a year where nobody was healthy. A lot of shit went wrong, right? But I think almost in a way this year can kind of be a bit of a blessing in disguise for them, right? Desmond Bane, we saw when he was kind of the guy, even though he didn't play a lot because he had the injury, he was really damn good last season when he did play without Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr., I felt like he made a lot of improvements. Him playing the center as much as he did, I don't think is very ideal, but, I still think he had a really good season in his own right.
They drafted.
And look who they drafted. I was just about to say that. Them being bad let them get, Zach Edey, who, is a controversial prospect, but, man, he was great in Summer League. He's looked like, I don't want to look into too much into like off-season workout videos and all that, but like him running that pick and roll with Ja, like that's going to be something they can go to and just hammer when they need to. And they have a Vince Williams, they have a GG Jackson, right? Marcus Smart, we're going to see him in this kind of newer role too. Brandon Clark back from injury. I think they've still got Luke Kennard on the team, and obviously, Ja Morant, like he's going to be back. Taylor Jenkins, I think, is one of the better coaches in the NBA.
Yeah,
I think all the signs are pointing to the Grizzlies having a major bounce back season, and like I'm not going to pencil them in as like a top 4, top 3 seed because you can't do that. The West has changed a bit, but like when John Morant is healthy and this team has its pieces, they just win games. And I'm buying all the stock that I can, especially now with the Zach Edey addition and some of the other young players. I feel like it's going to be kind of what we know the Grizzlies to be, but just elevated and with just more options.
Yeah. And I think with the whole Zach Edey pick, I think a lot of people had their preconceived notions of a 4-year big. But in the combine, he had some pretty good athletic testings. For his size, he was way faster. I don't say way faster, but he was faster than like Klingon, who a lot of people will just attest is more agile and faster, which was proven wrong. So I think Edey is someone that is kind of, I don't want to say overshadowed, but like he's undervalued. And I think through the lens of the Memphis team, all they needed was a supersized Steven Adams. And in my opinion, Zach Edey is going to be a supersized Steven Adams. He's going to come in, he's going to set big screens, he's going to box out, he's going to get boards. He's been, I don't want to say he's pro ready because he's a rookie, but 4-year guy, odds are he's going to make pro-like decisions.
And he was perfect. He was one of the best players in all of college basketball, like history. Actually, I mean, he was that dominant in the NCAA. Like, I don't know, like you can't say he's pro ready. He is going to be a rookie, and he is controversial for some reasons, right? But like, I think he and just the Grizzlies, like more broadly, really worth buying into.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah, I agree. I've been super high on them. I also, I think that the general public has undervalued Ja Morant's ability a little bit recently. I mean, I just think that the way that he plays is he obviously has flaws with his ability to stretch the floor, but when you're that dynamic of a shot creator getting to the rim and that high level of finishing and playmaking is always going to lead to positive output because he's going to be surrounded with players who can make plays off of his playmaking now more than even when they were the second seed in the West. So I'm looking forward to watching the Grizzlies. I think they'll be a really, really fun team to watch the whole year. I would agree. I've been buying in on them. I kind of didn't pick them because they came across my mind on my list, but I felt like that was like one that I feel like I've talked about a lot. So I wanted to go with someone else.
That's one of those things where it's like Grizzlies are honestly like over reliable and like everyone's buying the stock. Like, yeah, it dipped, but everyone's buying it. And in my opinion, it's already high again because everyone's bought it since the draft.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Definitely a team that's going to be on the opposite side of the standings this year.
For sure.
Yeah.
Matthias, you want to throw one out there or you want me to throw one out there?
I'll throw one out there. A team that I am buying, I'm going to buy the Clippers.
Oh,
interesting. I've seen people starting to push them down a little bit. Like, I think people.
I think, again, I think everyone has sold, not everyone, but a lot of people had sold their stock, PG leaving, and they didn't get really anything back. But I do think they're one of the teams that they've always had a bunch of role players while also having like this kind of like weird star dynamic that kind of overlapped and did too much of the same thing. And I actually feel that they're probably going to be worse than last year. Like, I'm going to be honest, like they're not going to be a better team or anything, but just looking at how the general public is viewing the Clippers, I would bet that they will overachieve from what most people are expecting of them right now is kind of my thought process with that.
Yeah. I'm in a weird place with the Clippers. I think you look at it and you see that, you know, they obviously lost Paul George, but there is still a Harden there who was very good last year, very underrated for the attention that he got. You saw the Harden, and then, you know, you replace Paul George's salary money with a ton of with a couple of really good role players, you know, getting Derrick Jones Jr. To headline that. And I think you can plug and play. And I think we say this a lot about the Clippers, but, you know, if you get a healthy Kawhi, which Hopefully you do. I mean, you got a healthy Kawhi for the whole regular season last year. I think I do buy them still being a playoff competitive team. I don't think I buy them as a contending team or a team I could see winning a championship. I see them as kind of like the team that's like, if everything goes their way, they could be a conference finals team more than a championship team.
Agreed.
So, that's that. But I think at least you have a good chance of doing a lot there. And I do like the additions that they added in. And I think this allows them also to run a little bit more of that, James Harden ball off the bench with him running a bench unit with a bunch of shooters and defenders. Even though it's not obviously the way it was when he was a Rocket or even a few years ago from his first year on the Sixers, but he's still an electric playmaker and still can have flashes of scoring greatness at times. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah,
depending on how creative they get, they can get a lot of DJJ lops with Harden. Like that is an underrated piece for his playmaking. I don't feel like anyone talked about that duo.
Yeah, I do. I personally, I don't think I would be touching the Clippers stock. I just don't feel good about betting on that team, given the fact that Kawhi Leonard could just never finish seasons. But like I completely understand the division, right? I agree, Jeff, that I think James Harden kind of sizing up back into a bigger role is going to be good for him. Like when he says that he is the system, it's like, you kind of roll your eyes, but there's truth to that. Like I think Harden playing his style is going to lead to wins in the regular season, right? And like James Harden now is not the same Harden as, MVP James Harden, but is still really good, right? And I think he can lead this team, or not lead the team because Kawhi is going to be there, hopefully. But this team, I think, can win a lot of games. And right, like Harden being able to play with a DJJ or, Harden and Zubac, running that pick and roll like they did last year is going to be really effective for them. I really do believe that. And they've got, who do they bring in? They brought in Mo Bamba, Chris Dunn. I thought was a really good addition for them. And like, it's just
Kevin Porter Jr.
Right.
Which is like whatever, but Kevin Porter Jr. could be a productive player if he does play. For them.
We'll see. It's just, Kawhi Leonard, he's got to be healthy for them to do anything. And if he is, let's say everything goes right and he is healthy for the playoffs, I agree. I can see them going on a bit of a run. Yeah.
No, I think I personally would not be touching the stock, but I could, if you're writing a presentation to sell me that stock, I could say that that's a good presentation on it. And like, I can see the vision of why you could have optimism for that.
Yeah.
So, I'm mainly gauging off of like the public's like what I see on like socials and all that, how people feel about the Clippers. Like I'm seeing people like throwing them all the way down the standings. And I just think that they're going to overachieve for that. But if you're going to like buy or sell, if they're going to be better than what they were last year, I would stay away from it. But right now, I think their stock is probably one of the fastest dropping stocks in the league after that PG trade. Like it just makes sense. You lose PG and you don't you get role players, but you don't really get anything of real value back.
And the West is not getting any easier, right?
Not at all.
Like some teams are going to have to kind of fall through.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to throw out my buying team. So this is a really kind of a random one, but I'm buying Hornets stock for next season.
I like that. Okay, that was my second team actually. I'll just say that.
So I low-key kind of like what they got building over there. Like, I am pretty high on LaMelo as a player. Like he's an all-star caliber player and he's an elite high volume three-point shooter. I mean, he shoots like 37% or something like that on like 9 attempts a game. And those are not catch and shoot attempts. That's deep pull up shot created threes. And then like Brandon Miller, after the injury to LaMelo last year and getting the ball in his hands more, we really saw what type of player he could be. We saw the flashes of that that kind of Paul Georgie two-way wing, the little Chris Middleton-y, a little bit like that kind of game to him. And I think he's going to continue to build on that. And then I'm also very high on like Mark Williams. Like I really like Mark Williams for them as a starting center. If he can stay healthy, which has been his problem the last 2 years, I really am high on him. And I think that they kind of have a foundation there. And then, you know, they drafted Tijan Saloon, who is just an intriguing player to watch. Like I kind of just am intrigued on where or what his role is going to be on the team, how he fits in. They have him listed as a forward, but he's like 6'9". So like, I'm guessing like, you're not going to be that good. So it's like, are you going to like say like, hey, well, like let's roll out him at the power forward? Are you going to roll him and Brandon Miller out as like a jumbo shooting guard small forward lineup? Like that would be kind of fun. Plus like they, who did they hire as their coach?
Charles
Lee, who I'm just blanking on his name, but was an excellent player development and like an assistant coach for the Bucks, and then went over to the Celtics and was running a lot of stuff there as well for their schemes. And it's like, and he has really good energy, and I think has a better vision for a young team as like his coaching style. And then they just have like a lot of guys that are like on the boundary of that I kind of like too, like Trey Mann. I'm really intrigued to see what he can look like for the full year of like, is he going to start at the 2 and just like roll out? Like, we're just going to get buckets. Like, is he going to be a 6-man scoring type? Josh Green they traded for, which I think was a pretty good acquisition. Like see if he can, maybe he starts at the 2 if you want more defense in your backcourt. And then, you know, like you brought back Miles Bridges, so it's like he's going to play. And you also like, I don't know. And they did funny stuff this offseason. Like they signed Taj Gibson and Seth Curry. Like, that's so funny.
Hey, they still got Grant Williams too.
Grant Williams, yep.
Go Grant Williams.
Yep. He changed the culture there in 2 days, remember?
True.
That was such a fun time.
As stupid as it is, like they need more people like Grant Williams that have experience on contending teams.
That's why I kind of like the Taj Gibson pickup as like a vet guy. Cause like,
why not?
And Seth.
Like you can salary dump him to some team probably because you're not a second apron, like throw him a little bit of cash if you want to free up a roster spot for a trade, or maybe the Knicks. It's going to be the Knicks are going to trade a minimum contract in the second rounder for him so they can have a backup 5. When one of their centers gets hurt again. So yeah, I just think it's interesting. And then also like, I do like, they drafted KJ Simpson.
I like KJ Simpson.
It's who I liked in the draft, who should be a good backup. He's like more of a steady point guard that they can have coming off the bench. And, you know, Amari Bailey's going to have another year and maybe he gets some playing time. And I also really like Nick Richards as like a backup center for them. So they just have a lot of intriguing players. I don't think they're going to be good. But I think I don't think they'll be horrible. I don't think they'll be bottom of the league horrible, you know?
Yeah. I think the one issue I have, the biggest hurdle for them is that they need to take it serious. Like it's hard for I think you're right that they'll be a little better. But long-term stock, it's very hard for me to invest in LaMelo, even though I think he's a super talented player. But I do think that the moves they have made, getting Charles Lee, I think Brandon Miller is someone that takes the game super seriously. And we saw instances of him kind of being frustrated in front of the media about how some of the Hornets dealt with throughout the season. And I also think, like you said, Gibson, Seth Curry, vets, you need shit like that in their locker room, because they have been kind of a league embarrassment these last few years. There's a lot of off-court issues, a lot of on-court kind of just immaturity everywhere throughout that franchise. And it's just like, it's really hard for me to try to see a long-term thing with this team.
Yeah.
But I really like Brandon Miller. I will say that. Like, I really, really like Brandon Miller, and I want him to succeed. So I hope, but I have my worries with that team right now.
Yeah, I think it's fair too. Like we haven't, seen this team really do anything with LaMelo on it, right? Like his first couple of years, they were in the play-in when they had, Gordon Hayward. They had who else did they have? They had Terry Rozier, right? Some of those teams, but didn't do anything in the play-in, and then have been bad the last 2 years because of LaMelo's injuries. But they were also one of my teams that I would buy into, right? Charles Lee, I really, really, really am high on that and on that hire. Like, the things that you see and the things that you hear is that the players are really, really responding to Charles Lee, whether that be at, summer practices, conversations, all of that. Brandon Miller, I think, is due for a big sophomore season. We saw him with the USA Select team really playing well in a lot of those scrimmages against some of the best players in the NBA. LaMelo Ball, like when he is healthy, he is a top 10 point guard in the NBA. Like he is that good. To be 6'7", 6'8", to be that big and to have elite passing vision and an elite pull-up jump shot, right? Again, like 9-10 attempts per game, high 30s in percentage. Like that's so hard to find. You aren't finding that everywhere, right? Mark Williams, one of my favorite, kind of under the radar young players in the NBA. Like they've got real pieces in Charlotte, and if they won like 40 games next year, it would not surprise me too much. I'm not saying they're going to go on a run or do anything in the playoffs, but I see an avenue to them being kind of around the 500 kind of area.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. If I were to bet on them, I would say they'd be around a playing team. So I think just below 500 is around playing.
In the East,
I think my issue is I just need to see a leader get developed in that locker room before I peg them as like a playoff team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't buy them as that either. Like, I think my thing is like I see people talking about them the same way that like they're talking about some of the other teams in the NBA that are like actually like going to be bottom feeders. Like they're not as bad as like the Wizards or the Nets.
No.
And I think or Detroit even, who is now in year 5 of being the fucking worst team in the NBA.
I do think if LaMelo's healthy, they're a play-in team. It's just like they either need for long term, like in like 2 to 3 years for them to be a playoff team. I think Brandon Miller has to be that guy. At least in the locker room, he has to be the voice in the locker room.
Yeah, and I think they also have like a guy who Garrett Williams, who's like a vet that actually is going to play, that can kind of like be like, hey, I'm a vet that's actually playing. I've been on Eastern Conference Finals teams. I've been on finals teams. Like, I know what you do have to do to win, even though maybe I wasn't I was contributing to that. Which I think can be helpful to see a guy on the actual court. And same thing with Josh Green, he's a young player, but he just came off a finals run last year. Now he's playing in Charlotte. It's like, okay, well, like LaMelo, I know what Luka's doing over there. Like, I know what it takes to be a role player on a team, and maybe he can get some of those young guys to buy into being more of a role player type guys.
That's what I was about to say. Someone like Saloon. Josh Green is someone who was a highly rated prospect. I can't remember if he was a top-ish pick or if he fell, but he was kind of like and he was like kind of like deemed like a project, similar to Saloon, and he's kind of gone through that ringer, and he's one of those guys where he's young, but he's experienced a lot more than most young guys experience in the league, so he's kind of fast-tracked to that vet status, and I think he's someone that can help both kind of like you said, they'll win now, but also bring some young guys up and kind of show them like, hey, this is how you develop and find your spot on this roster.
Yeah. For sure. You guys, Ryan, you want to throw another one? Player or team, whatever you want to do.
Let's go into player because I don't actually really have any more teams that I feel too strongly about. For player, I'm actually going to say Chris Paul.
Buying
the players, and it's a weird pick.
That's fair.
But the more I think about it,
I like that actually.
It's just like I can't think of a better team for him than San Antonio, right?
Yeah.
He's going to come in there and I think he's going to play. Like, I don't know if he's going to be their starting point guard. I think he probably will be at the beginning of the season at least, but he's going to play with Wembanyama. He's going to play with young players. He's going to play with just guys that could really use what he brings, right? You know, playmaking, veteran leadership, all that stuff, like winning culture. If you guys remember that season in Oklahoma City, when he really raised the floor of that team with a bunch of young guys and showed them what it takes to win. And I know that was 5 seasons ago now, but like, I think that there at some of that Chris Paul is still in there. I think he can get one. I think he can get one more season at like just one of that old Chris Paul out of him still, right? Last year with the Warriors, it was a weird fit, right? Things just didn't go well. He was hurt a lot of the year. It was a very weird Golden State Warriors season because you've got the stuff with Draymond going on, you've got the stuff with Clay going on. It didn't work, right?
No.
And I have a good feeling about the Spurs this season. I think, as most people do, with Wembanyama on the team, but Chris Paul specifically, I feel like we're going to get a really, really good season from Chris Paul. A season that kind of reminds us, like, you know, the Chris Paul from the Oklahoma City days is not that far behind. So, and Greg Popovich as the coach, right? Like, I think he's a smart guy. Obviously, I think he's going to find ways to get Chris Paul really kind of back to his old self a little bit.
Yeah. Chris Paul and Greg Popovich are two of the best basketball minds to ever live. I feel pretty confident in them figuring out a way to function both together and like with the team. And just like the young guys, just imagine like in practice, like the shit they're going to learn from Chris Paul and Greg Popovich. Just Devin, like easiest way to think about it.
Jeremy Sohan. Yeah.
Chris Paul can run like a really old version of like a Tony Parker type thing in this system. Obviously, he's not going to be as acrobatic or, I guess, spry as Tony Parker was, but he can pass. He can get to the paint. He can throw up a little floater. He can finish, and he is damn sure going to hit Wemby on all of the sets that they run.
Mm-hmm.
And they got some elite athleticism. Sohan as a cutter, he's going to get hit a lot.
Oh yeah,
they got like. I think Devin Vassell's life is going to get a lot easier because I think a lot of times he settles for jumpers. He's kind of like a one dribble pull up guy. And when you're playing off of Chris Paul, it's either catch and shoot three, fly by, pull up. Like it's going to simplify his game a lot. I think Keldon Johnson is then also going to get pushed back kind of.
Forgot about him. Yeah.
In a role, which I think is very important for him because I think right now he is he's got too much on his chip offensively. I think he's more of an off-ball guy that it's hard to say because he's like I just think he's got to, you know what I mean? He's got to dial it back a little bit, and I think Chris Paul is going to make just life easier for everybody. And I don't know. I didn't even think about that, but that's a great buy because I mainly was thinking about like the Spurs as a team, but the Chris Paul buys, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be good for him, for the entire Spurs roster, to have a guy who's steady and understanding. And last year, his underlying metrics were still really good. Kept afloat a bench unit and created points and kept their leads instead of blowing them. Which I think will just help the Spurs young players kind of get in line with what they need to be doing to create a winning culture. And also just kind of create that steady environment for them to be able to flourish, and then allows like other guys like Devin Vassell or a Sohan to kind of go back to what they should be doing instead of trying to overexert themselves in other ways. And I also really buying into Chris Paul as a mentor for Castle. Like,
oh yeah, we didn't even talk about Stephon Castle.
Like where his number one thing is like, well, is he really a point guard or is he going to be more of a shooting guard or a small forward because he's 6'6"? Like, well, he can handle the ball. He can play make a little bit as a connector. Well, okay. Well, maybe if we put the ball in his hands a little bit and for him to learn under Chris fucking Paul, like he can learn how to play point guard a little bit and better, and that allows him to kind of just develop next season under one of the all-time greats. And I think that'll be really good for their future, long-term and short-term. I wouldn't be surprised if you see with the step that Wemby's probably going to take and Vassell and all them. I mean, I don't think they'll be a play-in team or a playoff team, but I think they'll be fighting for one of those spots. I think you'll see them pushing 40 wins probably. Somewhere between like 36 and 40 would probably be my prediction for them. So I'm looking forward to that whole roster, to be honest. There's a lot of guys who should be really benefiting from just what they did this offseason.
Yeah. One more thing that we forgot to talk about for the Spurs too is they got Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, and that's another
I
guy.
think will add a couple more wins as well. Because now they have vets, and again, the West is dangerous, so making them saying them be a playing team. I
think
they'll
you see
win some games.
I think you see them pushing to be a competitive team this year. I think next season is going to be the season where you say, okay, it's time for you guys to take a leap into playoff contention. Because that's, third-year Wemby. You should realistically have another good guy developed by then, another young guy who you say is like on a all-star type trajectory, hopefully. And then, otherwise you can cash in some of those picks, and you got some pick swaps from Minnesota to throw in a trade. Those are free that you can kind of throw in there. It's like, well, maybe you can start pushing that pill a little bit next offseason. But I do like I think them being patient was the right move. I think like Chris Paul is a good vet to be patient with for your roster.
I do think though that I don't know how I feel about them trading their second lottery pick because I think it puts them in kind of this in between where, like, say Chris Paul plays this year and he's just old, not playable, right? All right, and then Harrison Barnes, like, he adds a little bit or whatever, but it doesn't do much. So then, like, you don't get this mentorship you expect. You kind of take away touches from other these role players and these younger guys that are trying to develop. And you get to next year and you're trying to win more, and you ran into this thing where you won a little bit too much and you're a play-in team. And I think this next draft, there's 3 to 4 guys that are like good. Like real good. I'm pretty high on like 3 to 4 guys already in this next draft. And I think that they could end up being like the 8th pick, the 10th pick. And it's like, will Stephon Castle be on an all-star trajectory? Will Devin Vassell be an all-star trajectory? That's kind of like a hard bet in one year for me, which is kind of worrisome. Whereas I think like if they would have gone another lottery guy this year, I think it would have really helped shape the trajectory portion of the roster. And I don't know. I think I'm just worried about them getting stuck in no man's land, because I get them buying in because Victor Wembanyama is one of the most impactful young players ever. Like, he had one of the most impactful rookie seasons ever, maybe the most impactful. So I get wanting to invest now, but they're not like where OKC is. You know what I mean? They kind of did what the Rockets did in a way.
Yeah.
Like, I think they obviously have more talent, like top end talent than the Rockets do, but you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, I think they're like a year or two early in this buy bets cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. I think as far as trading the 8th overall pick, I think that's going to be a thing where we're going to have to wait and see, right? Like, if Rob Dillingham ends up being really good in a few years from now, we can be like, okay, maybe the Spurs should have kept him, or maybe.
I think for me, I had Matas just fucking marked for that roster because of the versatility and the way they play.
That would have been a great fit.
I just think that has been itching with me at the 8th pick. I think he's going to be the guy that they're going to think that they stub their toe on missing.
Yeah,
just personally. I think there's someone else that I think I would have drafted.
Devin Carter, I like for them too.
Yes, I like Devin Carter.
Cody Williams.
I forgot what was all part of that Rob Dillingham trade.
Just to pick swaps.
A pick swap in like 2030. That was it. A pick right.
Yeah, and I don't think that helps Victor Wembanyama.
I think I don't know. I think it's like it's so hard to know what the NBA is going to be like. Then I feel like it could be a thing where it's like, that didn't really do anything, or it could be a thing where it's like, okay, that trade was genius.
Also, with how valuable draft capital is now with the new CBA, I could see that actually having some ability to get moved because people are going to want pick swaps are going to be. I think you're going to see a lot more pick swaps compared to actual just picks now, because people just need their draft picks now.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess like my worry is that Vic's huge, shorter careers. That's just a trend. But also, if you look at him, 6 years that could be his complete prime, and it could be one of those things like Celtics things. You know what I mean? They have Kyrie Irving on their team, and then all of a sudden they draft Jason Tatum. They could have Victor Wembanyama on their team, and the Minnesota Timberwolves could suck. You know what I mean?
Ryan's like, don't put that energy out.
I'm sorry. They could. And like, so I get like the future pick swap is kind of a double-edged sword. I don't know.
We could suck. Yeah, we could, but
I'm not betting on it. I know.
I mean, we're gonna win the championship this year, so it won't really matter, 2030. So
yeah,
that's so true.
I just know how it feels to be a smallish market team and have a star. Everything's scary.
They already have a better team than Dame ever had, bro.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we got Don Reed.
They leave, dude. Like they leave. Like I'm sorry, but
yeah,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. Did Ryan just throw one out? Do you want to throw one out, Matthias, or do you want me to throw one out?
I'll throw one out. I'll just go to players, unless I have a couple more teams, but we're already kind of deep in this, so I'll do players.
Sure.
The first guy I'm gonna do, which I think some people are selling. I've actually seen some people buy this, but I'm gonna do RJ Barrett.
Ooh, I have him on my buy list too.
Yeah, I really liked how he looked in Toronto. I like the way quickly him and Barnes play together. And it kind of makes no sense because like I know Scotty Barnes improved his 3-point jump shot, but he's still not a shooter. And RJ Barrett really isn't a shooter. But I weirdly like the way that they fit together on offense. And it doesn't really make sense. But
he was shooting well in FIBA. Or in, the Olympics, true. Man. He was cooking.
Yeah, I don't know why. I really like the way they flowed. And obviously it's the spring of an NBA season, so a lot of bad teams look better. But I think a lot of people have just completely sold on him. But he's a top prospect, top pick. He's still got a lot of talent in there, and he's still young. I'm not betting on him to like all-star or whatever, but I think he's going to surprise people in the next year or two.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think the Raptors overall is a team that I definitely am optimistic about. Right, Scotty Barnes. I mean, it's weird. I feel like this offseason, just kind of going back and watching tape and just thinking, like, I have really started to become really into the idea that Scotty Barnes can be like a superstar player. I just think that when it comes to the eye test, I just think he checks all the boxes for me, right? And I think a lot of the analytics are starting to catch up to that as well. Again, off-season workout videos, like you can't look too much into it, but that pull-up jumper just looks smoother and smoother every single summer.
And it was going in last year.
It was going in last year too, and I'm just excited about the Raptors in general. And yeah, RJ Barrett was great after the trade deadline. I think it's an example of just a player clearly needing a new environment, and what better environment than going back home to Toronto, to Canada. Right. Like, I mean, he was so like after the trade, that first press conference in Toronto, I mean, he was ecstatic about being a Raptor, right? Like he grew up a Raptors fan, his family, friends, they're all going to be around him, coming to games. And we saw that like directly translate to an increase in efficiency and production. Like RJ Barrett was really good post trade deadline, and so was Emmanuel Quickly. Right, Grady Dick had a really good kind of last bit of the season. Their coach Darko, I think, is a guy that I really like as a leader, someone who can inspire that locker room. I think Scotty is learning more and more how to be the leader, kind of how to be the face of the franchise too. So buy RJ Barrett for sure. I think buying Scotty, buying RJ, and buying Emmanuel Quickly, like those three are all worth investing in.
Yeah. I didn't even think about buying Scotty because I'm so much higher on Scotty than most people. Like,
Same.
Like I think he's already there. Like I think he's
really good.
He's a year or two away from potentially an All-NBA third season. Like I think he's that good. And I think that a lot of people, for some reason, when Pascal got traded, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, Pascal wanted to move on, which it was time to move on. It was only time to move on because Scotty Barnes fucking kicked him out of town. You know what I mean? Scotty Barnes forced the hand and made Toronto realize, like, oh shit, like we have to move on from this 2019 regime. You know what I mean? Because he was that good. And I think Scotty's one of those guys where he plays both sides of the ball. And it seems like each year he's kind of like Devin Booker in a way, where each year both sides of the ball somehow like kind of improve.
He's so good, bro. The defense, passing, shooting, really good.
Underrated thing too. He's one of the strongest players in the league.
Yeah, he's big, bro.
Oh, when he played there was a game he played the Bucks this year. He had like 3 different possessions where he like moved Giannis, and I don't think I've seen more than 3 other players in the league do that. Like I honestly,
I know what game you're talking about because the worst shooting team in the NBA just started lighting us up.
Yeah, and I think like Scotty's one of those guys where it's so well rounded, and if this 3-point shot season, like 3-point shooting season, isn't a fluke, like I think he's All-NBA third team within the next 2 years. As long as the Raptors are playing or higher, he's going to make an All-NBA team soon. Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, you got any?
Yeah, I had RJ Barrett for all the same reasons. I just think that he was so good last year. Like he quietly averaged like 24, 7 and 5, I think. Something like that. Second half of the year after the trade deadline. So, I think he can take that step, hopefully, with the ball in his hands, allowing him to slash, and Scotty and him play off each other really weirdly well for 2 ball dominant slashing forward. It's really weird. I'm gonna do a sell. I'm gonna do a team. I'm selling the Orlando Magic at their current kind of price. Listen, I think they will be a playoff team again, but the way that people are talking about a lot of these teams, this team, they're hyping them up to be close to that top 3-4 range of teams. I am not buying the offense from them at all. I think Paul's really good. I think Fonz is a good player. I like the KCP pickup. I like bringing back Gary Harris. I like those guys. The spacing is still negative. Like you're still having bad spacing. Adding KCP is not. He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. He's not an elite floor spacer. He's not even that high volume of a 3-point shooter. I think he only shot 5 or 6 a game, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. I don't want to speak on something. I don't want to say something that's not true. But while I'm looking that up, I'll finish this. And even then, with his offense, a lot of his catch and shoot is created off of one of the greatest offensive engines of all time. And his ability and his gravity to create open shots. And I'm just not sure that the spacing is going to be good enough for them to sustain offense throughout the whole season. The defense is going to be elite as it is, and that's going to win them games. But is that defense sneaking up on teams like it did last year as much? Like, not really. No. I don't think so. And I still think they got really, really good years out of literally every single big man on the roster. Like, I don't know if that happens again, but like, so I don't know. Yeah. I think I'm selling them for what the consensus on them is as like one of these fourth or fifth best team in the East. Like I just don't know if that's them necessarily. I think they're not that much, but I think they're pretty comparable to the Cavs. I think they're pretty comparable to the Pacers too. Like
Yep.
like they could
I
very
agree with
easily
that.
be the 7th or 8th seed. Like if a few injuries don't go their way and if a couple stretches don't go their way throughout the season.
Yeah,
So
I think.
yeah, he shot under 5 a game. Wait, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, that was this is projected this year. He shot 4 a game last year.
That's not a lot.
That's
Okay.
not even that many.
Sure.
And he, like that's not that many shots.
I think with the Magic, a lot of people are expecting them to make a move. Obviously,
I don't know if they are. I feel like if
I
they
don't
were
think
going to,
they
would.
are right now. The Magic are one of those teams where they're kind of like the Kings were a few years ago, where the Kings are good, and even though the Kings kind of fell in the standings last year, everyone knows they're good. They're a young team. They're good. They got De'Aaron Fox, who's a star. They got Sabonis, who's a really good second player, just like Paolo and friends. But they were kind of missing this like small forward piece to kind of put it all together, and they kind of dipped in the standings. And now I think DeMar DeRozan's back in California. I think there's a way that that he could be that small forward shooting guard in between piece. And I think with the Magic, their missing piece is the guard. And until they find a shooting, like a not
An
like a shooting
offensive
guard, but like an offensive like
guard, yeah.
that can shoot the ball, and he doesn't even have to be like a playmaker because they have Paul and Franz that are
Yeah,
playmakers
I think they still
naturally.
need a plus playmaker at the point. I still think.
Yeah, I think like the worst playmaker you get is like you would target someone like Anthony Simons at worst as a playmaker,
Yeah,
and then on the opposite spectrum, somehow, some way, if Cleveland struggles again, try to get Garland but then I don't know how the money would work because he's way more expensive, isn't he?
yeah.
So
I think
it's
he's
just
gonna
like
do
Yeah.
something.
So it'd be harder to get. But some like players like that, until they get a lead guard that can score or relief playmaking from Paulo and Franz, like they're going to be a team that fluctuates from 4 to 8. That's just, I think, how it's going to be.
Yep.
Yeah. I hear you, Jeff, with the Magic. I mean, I think, long term, definitely still high in the Magic as being a team that can really be special with Paulo at the helm of it all. But for next season, yeah, I think I'm not projecting anything big for them next season, and they don't have to do anything crazy next season. I think, I think it would be hard for me to see them making it out the first round again, and I just don't think they're there yet. I still think they're at least another year away from being a team that can actually make a run, and that's just because it's the obvious. The offense is just not there. In the playoffs, you got to make shots. That's just how
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, Paulo was shooting like KD efficiency from jump shot, on like contested jump shots last year in the playoffs. I don't think he's doing that again.
Yeah, that's no. And
But I do think
KCP
Paulo will take a step. Like
Yeah.
you got to think like he will take a step.
he's one of those ones. Like he's gonna take a step. But in case, like, yeah, KCP is not gonna transform the spacing on offense.
Absolutely not.
Great shooter.
He doesn't have
Yeah.
gravity.
Yeah, he's not changing the dimensions of the court like a lot of shooters are, right?
Mhm.
Not the same thing. And Jalen Suggs, 39% from 3 last year off 5 attempts. We're gonna have to see if that holds up, because before that, his first 2 years in the NBA, he was one of the worst volume shooters in the NBA.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it holds up. I mean, I think it will, because in high school, he was a good shooter, but we just have to see. That's just how it is. And their big man spot, like I'm not the most comfortable with just with Wendell Carter Jr. kind of being the long-term center of this team. And Mo Wagner had a great season last year off the bench, but is he going to replicate that? I'm not completely sure. So I think for this season, I think it would be wise to kind of, to not get too ahead of, not to get too ahead of ourselves with the Magic.
Yeah, I can agree.
Yeah. Well, I'll do
Ryan?
I'll do a player I'm selling on. I got one. Yeah, a player I'm selling is my biggest op, Jamal Murray. I'm selling on Jamal Murray, man.
I actually
And here's why.
I thought about putting him on my list too.
Like, I think people have noticed, but I don't think enough people are talking about how bad the last 6 months have been for Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
He was really bad in the Olympics like really bad and to a concerning level for me. In the playoffs, yeah, he was dealing with a bit of an injury, but still, like he wasn't that good. Against the Lakers, he hit a couple game winners, looked decent, you know what I'm saying, but was not giving you that good or efficient of production, really.
There was a reason they were down a lot to start those games. Like it was a lot of like the offense just engine wasn't loading for. Honestly, it felt like a lot of the Denver Nuggets the whole playoffs, but it specifically Jamal Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
and I think the Nuggets have gotten way too reliant on the Jamal Murray Jokic kind of 2-man game. That used to be something that they would go to late in games as kind of a closing style, right? Now it feels like their entire offense is just that, with shooters kind of roaming around and Aaron Gordon looking to cut and go for rebounds. The Denver offense has gotten stale. They lost KCP. They're going to replace him with Christian Brown in the starting lineup, a non-shooter. That's not going to make Jamal Murray's job any easier. I think overall there's some room to be a bit concerned about the Nuggets and just, do they have another championship run in them? Because after they won the championship in 2023, we all thought like, oh, this could be a dynasty. Like this, they could just keep on winning. It doesn't always work like that. And Jamal Murray, I'm concerned a little bit with the injury stuff and just him not looking right. And
Nuggets contract that was reported. Oh, shout out my cat. You can see above my shoulder here.
Shout out to the cat.
You just saw her walk into frame. But yeah, I mean, like the Nuggets were supposed to give him a contract extension, and they was announced and everything with the number, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're getting Shams reports, and Woj's like, yeah, actually, the Nuggets told him like, no, like you injured too much, and you don't want to give us any sort of non-guaranteed stipulations, so we're out. So he's hitting free agency next season. So that's interesting, especially because the Nuggets are like notoriously cheap as fuck for whatever reason. Even though their owner spends a ton of money on every other sports team he owns, he does not care about the Nuggets at all. So, yeah,
sounds like somebody I know.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I don't really blame him. I don't really disagree with anything you said.
Yeah.
The Olympics were really horrible, like really horrible. I mean, they are first rounded in the elimination sets as a team that was projected to get silver.
Yeah, silver or bronze. Like it was supposed to be France or Canada, really, to duel. And it's usually France, Canada, or Germany, right?
Sometimes and they ended up getting first rounded. Like, that's kind of embarrassing.
It was an embarrassing Olympics for Canada.
And Jamal Murray did not play well, and he did not have a great playoffs. He had good moments, but he did not have a good. Those moments, those game winners he hit, like those overshadowed like the overall entire playoffs as a whole. To be honest, like those games he hit Lakers game winners, like the reason they were in close games is because he was playing like shit. Like,
and I will say, like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna say like it was just like, but people just look past that when you're hitting a game-winning shot, as they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't. Like, it was a great moment. Like,
but like the main thing I kind of think of with Jamal Murray is like the inconsistency this year. I know, like on socials, it turned into like a meme or whatever. With if Jamal Murray goes off, you're a good team. If he doesn't care, you're not a contender.
Good team, man.
Yeah, but like he was just inconsistent all year, and like people made it a joke, but like. So it kind of, I guess, overshadowed it or turned it into like a Game 6 Clay type thing. I don't even know, but like he got like this weird title, but it's like, no, he was just inconsistent. And I think it happened throughout the whole year. And I get you got to give it to the champs. You give him the benefit of the doubt. He's dealing with injury, and he has been a really clutch performer, but I do kind of agree. I don't think Jamal Murray is going to take kind of like this star step that some people put him on after the championship win. Like I think he's plateaued or is going to have to take a step back due to injury. Just sadly, that's how his career's gone. He's gotten really injured.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I got another Cell player.
Yeah, I got a Cell player too. I'll go after you.
Yeah, I'm selling Jalen Green stock for this season.
Ooh,
Um,
I get it. I get it.
I just don't
Had
know
him
what
as well.
is. I don't know that is that your sell player? Is that
No,
what?
I just had him I have like 5 just in
Oh,
case
okay.
there was repeats. So.
I just don't know where he fits in with this team right now. I mean, the shot creation is there. I mean, I was listening to a podcast. I don't remember who it was, but they were going through Jalen Green's numbers and like he takes threes, but they're never catching. Like he takes, I think they said he had like 62 catch and shoot threes the entire season,
Ugh.
and he played like 70 something games. Like, do you know how hard that is to do in the modern NBA? So that means when he's catching the ball around the 3-point line, he's just immediately going into ISO, like no matter what, even if like, and like his 3-point, like he doesn't shoot them efficiently, and he doesn't shoot wide open ones, and he only takes tough shots, and he's not efficient taking those tough shots. So it makes it hard for him to create efficient offense. He's not really a plus playmaker in any means, like as an actual balls in the hands passing guy, or even just swinging the rock type of guy. I mean, he just goes and gets tunnel vision so often, and he takes bad shots. And like they have this whole identity of, you know, moving the ball and playing hard defense and also like playing like team basketball. And I just don't know if he fits there. They didn't pay him last offseason. He was the number 2 overall pick. They didn't pay him, which I feel like we had a conversation about this throughout the year too. Like,
Yeah, we had a conversation in like the first third, like, would we pay him? And then he just did not do good in the first half of the season. And then he had like the turnaround in the spring.
He had that run where he was averaging like 26. But
yeah,
even then, like that didn't look sustainable. He was making a ton of crazy difficult shots. It's just not sustainable unless you're like a superstar type player to be just only take tough self-created shots.
Yeah.
And they're so deep with young talent. It's like, okay, well, where are you fitting in on this roster, and where can you plug and play yourself into a role here if you're not going to be developing as a star? And I mean, he's super young still. I mean, I think he's only 21.
22, 21.
So hopefully like that develops a little bit and he just looks better next season. But I probably overall sell him because I just don't think he's going to fit. I think he's probably going to be on a new team next season.
I agree. And I think that's the best for both sides. I think when you look at the Rockets roster, I agree he's lost. Like I would play Amen over him. I think the playmaking is more important. You don't really have any super plus playmakers on that roster. Other than him, what you got, Fred. I guess Sengun. Oh my god, I'm forgetting Sengun, but I'm thinking guards. Like
who also didn't get paid.
Yeah.
True.
But like in terms of their young 5, if I'm running a young lineup, I don't think I'm putting Jalen Green in there if I'm thinking about the future. I don't think I am. I'm putting Amen, I'm putting Reed, I'm putting Cam Ratari, I'm putting Jabari, and then I'm putting Sengun. And we already went through the buys, but Jabari Smith was a person I put on my buy list because I do think that Jalen Green is going to get moved out of the roster. Not out of the roster, but out of the depth chart. I think Amen's going to be coming in. I think Jabari's going to get set up a lot easier. I think he's going to take a step in scoring. I think when you have Reed in the shooting, I think you're 100% right, Jeff. That team basketball, the move, hit shooters, and defend, like that is what Reed, that's what Jabari, that's what Cam Whitmore, that's what like a lot of those guys do. And I feel like Jalen Green's the only guy that doesn't do it. And I feel like when you have shooters like that and you already have a positive playmaker and a post presence, you got to have a guard that can get the shooters and the ball. Like,
yeah,
Jalen Green, I feel like Jalen Green can't even get a post entry to Sengun sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, he's just not a passer. And if he needs to, he's going to have to go somewhere else if he wants to take that step as a scorer, as a lead guy, or he's going to have to be like, let me Jordan Clarkson it. Let me be a Jamal Crawford. And if he doesn't take that step back, he is going to be off the Rockets or struggling to find a roster in the next like 35 years.
It's weird that like he is young, right?
Yeah.
But we've also seen 3 seasons Jalen Green, and we still have no idea like what kind of player he is. Is he your guy? Is he your go-to guy, like your star? I mean, like the talent in the flashes would suggest that he could be, but you know, he hasn't been, right? He's not good enough. And as far as kind of that bucket getter, potential bench guy, sometimes it kind of feels like he's too good for that. Like, you know, you drafted him second overall. You've kind of been building around him a little bit. It would be a lot to kind of to pigeonhole him into that when he is still so young.
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
I do think. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's difficult, right, to kind of gauge where he's at, and yeah, like with the Rockets, you've got other young guys who are knocking on the door, right? Reed Shepherd, I think he's gonna be really good. Like I think we all think he's gonna be really good. He's awesome. Amen Thompson, one of those guys, right? Like if he was in this draft, he would have gone number 1 overall, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe not, but I think
chance
he could have. So
he was he was a positive defender and a positive playmaker as a rookie, and like people got to realize like he went 4th, and there were people trying to say that he was a better prospect than Scoot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like there were people saying the Blazers made the wrong decision.
Yeah,
and they might be right. They might be right. Like I think he would have went number 1 overall. I would have taken him over Zach and.
Yeah, and you got Cam Whitmore on that team, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith. There are so many guys on that Houston Rockets team where it feels like Jalen Green is more likely the odd man out, just out of that group. And yeah, him not getting paid yet. I'm sure he's thinking about that. I'm sure that's going to be an interesting thing to kind of keep in mind this season as he goes on hot streaks and cold streaks. Is that like he's playing for a contract, you know? He's not one of my guys that I would be selling on necessarily because I think the talent is just hard to ignore for me sometimes, but definitely not a guy that I really have as much faith in as I maybe once did. I thought last year was going to be his breakout if there was going to be a year. And he had that stretch, but you know, it was just like a month, right? And that's compared to the whole season where he was bad for a lot of last season. Can't look too much into that.
Mm-hmm. And like, I don't want to harp on his negatives too much, but elite athleticism, elite first step, not a finisher, can't get to the rim. That's a problem, number 1, especially when you're playing off a Sengun and he can't be utilized as a cutter when you have all that athleticism. That is a worry. Like when oh my God, what is his name? Why am I blanking on the coach's name? Whenever their coach came and they switched to Ime. Whenever they switched to kind of the Sengun focused offense, I really thought that would open up the game for Jalen Green as a cutter and utilize his athleticism. And it felt like he just didn't know what to do. And that is a huge problem because he doesn't have a reliable skill. A scorer who doesn't get to the rim is not reliable unless you're Steph Curry. But Steph Curry even gets to the rim, so that's not even like a statement.
And the shot is not consistent, and there's like just weird attitude stuff with him sometimes that I don't like as a guy who, you know, who thinks of himself as kind of the young star moving forward. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just it's a weird situation over there in Houston, and I think like, you know, change of scenery, like you said, end up on a new team. I think that's something that could be really good for him.
Yeah, and I think that like when we say that this was a year, like usually you figure out what people are the 3 to 5th year of their career. So like I still think he can figure it out. For instance, Anthony Simons sucked for 3.5 years. One January evening, he figured it out. And now he's like a reliable guard, you know what I mean? And like Jalen Green could, one February evening this year, just finally find the pace, finally find a way to get to the rim. And next thing you know, the Rockets they're a playoff team. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to harp on him and act like he's done or he's going to be out of the league. But I do think he has obvious flaws that he hasn't quite refined yet. And if he doesn't refine them, it's time to worry.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right.
Yeah, I
Any
think
other ones?
Batista had one more he wanted to throw out there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna reference one because I kind of already referenced him in a podcast where you have to talk about him. Paul George, I'm selling on him. I think while I do think he does fit theoretically in that, I think he's going to. I think for the same reason I'm buying on the Clippers, I'm selling Paul George. You know what I mean? I think he's going to kind of just be a small forward shooting guard Tobias Harris. And I said that again in the podcast, so I don't want to like go again. You know what I mean? I think Paul George is at this weird point in his career where he hasn't quite taken steps back when I think I would like him to. And I don't necessarily love the dynamic of him coming in, taking away shots from Maxey. So yeah. But the main one I wanted to talk about was Jordan Poole, because I need to push my Bub Carrington agenda. Bub Carrington is going to kick that man out of the lineup. Jordan Poole has to perform in the first few months of the season, or Bub Carrington's going to take his spot. And I'm 100% sure of that. I think when making this list, I wanted to put Bub Carrington on my buy the stock, but he's a rookie. That makes no sense. So I had to find a way to put him in here. And I just think Jordan Poole has too many inconsistencies. And I think that he's got a short clock with what's coming on that roster, because I think Washington has one of the best drafts. I think they got Bilal, they got again Bub. I think he's going to get pushed on that depth chart.
Yeah, I don't disagree. He does need to perform. He had a bad year last year. I am excited to see what he looks like without them trying that Tyus Jones starting with him and playing minutes with him. Like, I think with the ball in his hands, I think he's going to look better. I do think, though, I think the Jordan Poole mess is much more. It's kind of interesting because like a lot of the times when you see like a scoring first guard, right, you think of them as playing better with like a playmaker or like a defender. I think Jordan Poole actually plays a little bit better with another offensive guy. Having another offensive guy to take some pressure off and kind of play free flowing and just let the offense flow through two guards and kind of see where it takes them from there, I think should be interesting to see. I think they can coexist. And I think if Jordan Poole has the ball in his hands a little bit more, which he will next season because he's the established guy there, Bub's a rookie. I think you're looking at where you allow him, maybe Jordan Poole having the ball, and he was playmaking really well at 10 this season. 7-8 games assists a game towards the end of the year, maybe pushing 9, I think. Even I would have to look at the numbers, but him being able to do that, I think could also, like, if he's back to doing what he was doing at the end of last year, I think that allows Bub to grow, and then Bub can come in when he's not playing and do his own little shot creation thing, and hopefully he can learn to play off of another shot creator right away, which will be good for Bub's development.
100%.
Because I have like zero expectations for Alex Sarr's offense. Like I think it's going to be like horrid to start.
No, I actually think it's going to be one of those things where, like, the rookie ladder, like Bub's going to be like 5th, and I think Alexander Sarr is going to be like 4th or like 6th. Like, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, I think Bub is actually going to be very helpful for Sarr, and I think same with Jordan Poole. Like, I don't want to, like, because Jordan Poole is good. I was someone that I thought he would actually take a step in Washington. Same. And I think you're right, actually.
I was writing an article last summer about like 5 most improved player candidates, and I had Jordan Poole on there. Actually, I think all of my picks were pretty awful. Actually, I think I thought Obi Toppin would win last year. I was like, Obi Toppin, Indiana, he's winning that award. He didn't end up winning, but
yeah. Like, I will say, like, Jordan Poole kind of plays out of control. Sarr kind of plays out of control. I do think Bub is someone that's kind of always in control. So maybe that 2 guard where Bub is kind of the calm, cool, collected, but then Jordan Poole can kind of play off of him, like you said, Jeff. Actually, I think now you bring that up, could work really well. I just think he's just too inconsistent, kind of like Jalen Green. where I just think Bub is too solid. He's too steady, and he also plays both sides of the floor, and he's got length. And obviously, I know the Wizards are a few years away, and they'll probably be a terrible team.
They're going to be the worst team. I think they're going to be like the worst or the second worst team in the league.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be absolutely putrid.
But that being said, they're going to get really good young talent. And I know there's a couple guards, small forwards in the draft that's going to be around top 5 where they'll be. So, and if I'm going to bet on, or if I'm going to pick a guard to push down the roster by the end of the year, it's probably going to be Jordan Poole to make room for a top pick. Because let's be honest, if you're drafting a top pick, you're going to play him, even if you already have it established. Like, look at, for instance, Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson. You're playing Scoot Henderson. Like, it's how it happened. And there was a lot of times as fans, you're like, well, right now, Jordan Poole is probably better than this guy, but there's a reason you draft him. And I think Jordan Poole is going to run to that situation real soon.
For sure. Yeah, I think that about wraps up then for us talking about everything. While we're on the Wizards, I'm just gonna say this name. I don't want to talk about him at all, but Corey Kispert, shout out to him. I was gonna buy his stock.
Yeah.
He will end up on a contender, and he'll be really fucking good for them. And no one should be surprised, but they will be. Anyways, that about wraps up everything we got for today. Appreciate anyone who's made it through the full video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We'll be back talking about all kinds of stuff throughout the next couple weeks, hopefully. With everyone's schedule sort of normalizing here soon. Everyone is moving out of town, all that good stuff for the last 2 weeks. So hopefully we're all stabilized a little bit. Hopefully Ryan can get internet. Dude.
No more hotspot.
I saw him plug it in his phone, so his Wi-Fi wouldn't go out. But yeah, appreciate it and peace out.